Man, I don't know what was going through my head that night. You know how it is, that kind of invitation you accept just to avoid being a buzzkill. My friend Rick called me up saying, "Hey dude, let's hit the trail tonight. It's gonna be awesome." And me, kinda on autopilot, replied, "Sure." If I had known what was coming, I would have said a firm no and stuck with my chill life. But no, there I was, grabbing a flashlight and a jacket, thinking I was just going for a casual walk. Rick was the type of guy who fancied himself the king of adventure. For him, anything involving being outdoors was a big quest. When I got to his place, he was already with the car ready and seemed super pumped. "Let's go, the trail is just getting started," he said with a smile that looked more like a psychopath's grin. I wasn't 100% comfortable, but he was my friend, and I didn't want to be the wet blanket. The road to the trail looked like one of those horror movie scenes. Everything was dark and quiet, except for the sound of the tires on the road. Rick was driving like he was in a rally race, and I was trying not to think about the fact that we were heading to a place that honestly didn't look like it had much good waiting for us. Finally, we arrived at the start of the trail. The first thing that hit me was the silence. Like that kind of silence that feels like it's watching you. The sky was clear, but the moon wasn't helping much with lighting up the path. I grabbed my flashlight, and Rick grabbed his. As we started walking, Rick was talking about how he had stumbled upon the trail by chance and how it was a well-kept secret. I was just trying not to trip over tree roots and ignoring the feeling that something was about to go wrong. The trail was kinda creepy, with dense trees and that damp earth smell. I was wondering if there was anything in that thicket. "So, Rick, what exactly are we looking for here?" I asked, trying to break the silence. He gave me a mysterious look and said, "You'll see, it's a surprise." And all I could think was, great, another Rick surprise. The hike felt endless, and the cold was starting to set in. The path seemed to twist and turn. Rick stopped abruptly and said, "We're here." And I thought, "Here, where?" He led me to a small clearing where there was an old abandoned campsite. The place looked like it was straight out of a movie, an extinguished campfire, an old table covered in marks, and a campsite that had clearly seen better days. The atmosphere was tense. Rick was glowing, like he'd found hidden treasure. I, on the other hand, was far from comfortable. The feeling that we were intruding on a place we shouldn't be was strong. "Look what I found," Rick said, pulling something from his backpack. It was an old, yellowed notebook. The notebook was filled with strange notes, and it looked like someone had spent a lot of time writing about that place. The pages were full of detailed descriptions of the area, with some weird symbols and notes about activities that definitely didn't seem normal. Rick was flipping through the pages and talking about the place's history, but all I could think about was how I ended up in this spot. It was like we were on the brink of discovering something that shouldn't be discovered. Rick seemed to completely ignore the dark mood that was forming. And I just wanted to get back to the safety of my couch, away from that clearing and the strange notes now in my hands. "Check this out," he said. "It looks like this place was used by a group for some kind of ritual." I took a look at those pages and honestly, I was starting to get worried. The notebook talked about rituals and ceremonies that seemed pretty bizarre. It wasn't just about the campsite itself, but about things that happened after the rituals. And also things that had to be done before everything, like offerings. And honestly, I wasn't prepared to deal with that. "It says here they used the place for, I don't know, purification?" Rick was trying to make it sound like just a historical curiosity. Among the notes, I found a drawing that looked like some kind of map, but with marks I couldn't identify. And the weirdest part was that it seemed to have a pattern, something repeating, like someone was trying to hide something. The conversation with Rick was getting more and more uncomfortable. He started talking about how some of the rituals described in the notebook might have involved people like us. The idea was as absurd as it was terrifying. I was trying not to think too much about it. "Hey Rick, don't you think this is a bit, I don't know, dangerous?" "Relax, it's just an old story. Doesn't have anything to do with us." But I wasn't convinced. Something about the way he was acting didn't seem right. Like he was trying too hard to calm me down. To make things worse, a strange noise coming from the edge of the clearing made me jump. It sounded like someone approaching. Rick heard it too, and his smile vanished instantly. "Stay calm," he murmured, trying to keep control. Then, a group of people appeared on the trail, and I can't even describe the sheer terror that overtook me. They weren't dressed normally. They were wearing dark clothes and seemed to be carrying something. Rick tried to act normal, but the situation was unfolding in a very sinister way. The people started asking questions, and Rick was trying to handle it. But I knew it wasn't normal. We were in the middle of something we shouldn't be involved in. They were starting to surround us, and I knew it was time to get out of there. I couldn't quite understand what was happening, but the guys were carrying objects that looked pretty suspicious. One of them, who seemed to be the leader, was watching us closely. "Hey, what are you doing here?" "We were just exploring. Didn't mean to cause any trouble." I was starting to think that if we stayed there any longer, things would get worse. The way the guys were surrounding us, like they were expecting something. The tension increased when one of the other guys started inspecting around the clearing. He was checking the place, looking for something. "What are your names? What are you doing here? What were you doing with that notebook?" I noticed the leader was casually holding a knife. The guy was clearly doing some kind of checkpoint to make sure no one was there by accident. I started giving discreet signals to Rick, trying to show that it was time to get out. Rick, who was clearly struggling to keep the situation under control, finally seemed to realize that things were getting out of hand. "Let's go," I whispered, trying not to draw attention. Rick gave a quick nod, and without further ado, we started backing away from the clearing. The problem was, as we moved away, the leader and the others started following us, keeping a strange distance but clearly watching every move we made. I felt like we were being hunted. The way back seemed longer than the way there. We managed to get out of the clearing and followed the path back to the car. The sound of our own footsteps felt deafening, and the sense of imminent danger didn't let up. As the car's headlights came into view, I knew we had narrowly escaped. The feeling of relief only came when we finally got in the car and started driving back to the city, away from those people and that clearing, which I was sure I never wanted to see again. I certainly won't be going on any more trails for the rest of my life. Give us a shout out and subscribe to the channel. I know you enjoyed our content.